Have you ever wondered what really happened after the royal wedding bells stopped ringing? What horrors lurked in the bedchambers of kings and queens when the doors closed and the crowd faded away? Because not every royal wedding night ended in romance. Some ended in fearing, shame, and in blood-forget fairy tales. The truth is far darker than any fiction. In this video, we're stepping into the hidden world of history's most terrifying royal wedding night traditions, rituals so strange, so disturbing they've been buried in the shadows of time. We'll discover how entire royal courts watched kings and queens undress, how child brides were dragged into freezing marriage beds, how emperors performed unspeakable acts to prove consummation, and how wedding nights were sometimes used as weapons of control or punishment. Some of these stories will shock you. Some may leave you in disbelief, but all of them are true. And if you think you know how royal marriages worked, you're about to see a side of history they never taught you in school, because this wasn't about love, it was about power. And on the wedding night, power was on full display. So stay with us until the very end, because the final tradition on our list is perhaps the most disturbing one ever. Recorded a night that changed the fate of an empire forever. Welcome to History Screen Channel, where we bring you the untold, the unsettling, and the unforgettable. If you enjoy stories that dig deep into the darker side of the past, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a hidden tale from history's shadows. Let us begin ritual number 5. In medieval Europe, a royal wedding wasn't truly complete until the marriage was physically confirmed. That meant one thing: the bedding ceremony. It sounds private, but it was anything but. After the feast and the vows, the royal couple was led to their bedchamber. Not alone, but followed by a noisy crowd of nobles, priests, even close family members. Everyone wanted to witness the beginning of royal union. This was no quiet moment between husband and wife. It was a public ritual. Sometimes the bride and groom were undressed by attendants as the guests laughed, drank, and even made crude jokes. The couple might be given symbolic gifts like stockings, then asked to toss them across the room for luck. And once they were both in bed, a priest might say a blessing over the sheets. Point of all this: to prove consummation in royal marriages, it wasn't enough to say, "I do," a kingdom could rise or fall depending on heirs. So everyone had to be sure the marriage was real. And this ritual wasn't optional. Even Henry VIII, known for his pride and control, took part. When he married Catherine of Aragon, records say he allowed witnesses to enter his chamber. His new bride was publicly undressed by attendants and courtiers, stayed long enough to confirm they had climbed into bed together. The whole thing was meant to be symbolic, but to modern eyes it feels deeply intrusive, almost humiliating still. For kings and queens, privacy came second, public duty came first, especially on the wedding night ritual. Number 4. In royal marriages, failure to perform on the wedding night wasn't just embarrassing, it was dangerous. For kings and queens, the first night was more than private pleasure. It was a test of masculinity, of fertility, of power. If there was no consummation, rumors spread fast, and sometimes witnesses were called in to investigate. Take the case of Mary of Portugal and King Henry IV of Castile. Mary was just a teenager. After the wedding, she was sent to Henry's chambers. But night after night, nothing happened. Henry's impotence became a scandal whispered across the court. Some even called him Henry the Impotent, with no child and no proof of consummation. Mary's family demanded the marriage be annulled. She was questioned about what had happened in bed. Her virginity was inspected. Royal doctors examined the king. Eventually, the marriage was declared invalid. But Mary's story wasn't unique. Even Marie Antoinette, Queen of France, faced the same quiet pressure. She married Louis XVI at just 14, but for years their marriage was never consummated. Letters between royal family members show rising panic. Political alliances were at risk. Enemies mocked them in the press. The young queen was blamed, though it was Louis who struggled with the act. There was even talk of annulment if the situation didn't change. Royal bed wasn't just about love or lust, it was a battlefield. And if a king couldn't win that battle, witnesses were called, secrets were aired, and history was rewritten in the royal world. Silence between the sheets could bring shame or end a marriage altogether. Ritual number 3. Imagine standing at the altar, hand in hand with your new husband, but instead of spending your wedding night together, a powerful man, a lord or noble, steps in and claims your bride as his own, just for the night. That's the legend of Jus Primae Noctis, or the right of the first. Night, according to this old belief, medieval lords had the legal right to sleep with any peasant bride on her wedding night before her husband could. It was meant to remind everyone who truly held the power. In many versions, the bride was taken to the lord's castle while the groom waited outside helpless. Some stories even say this act happened in front of others, meant to humiliate, but was it real? Historians have debated this for centuries. There's no solid legal record proving it was ever officially law. Many now believe it was more myth than reality, a way to explain the deep fear and control lords had over their people. Still, whether it happened or not, the idea left scars in folklore songs and whispered stories. And in some places, people pushed back, villages rebelled, young women hid or ran to avoid the cruel ritual. Some fathers and husbands even killed to protect their brides. In literature, the ritual became a symbol of female shame, stolen dignity, and powerlessness. Yet sometimes it also showed defiance, a refusal to surrender, even when the odds were overwhelming, whether a real practice or a haunting tale. Jus Primae Noctis reveals the terror many brides face, where love had to wait and fear took its place. Ritual. Number 2. In royal courts, childhood was often traded for treaties. Isabella of Valois was just 6 years old when she was sent from France to England. Dressed in silk and jewels, she stood beside King Richard II, more than 2 decades her senior, as his bride. She didn't understand the vows. She barely understood the language. But none of that mattered. Her body became the symbol of a fragile truce between 2 warring nations. This wasn't love. It was politics in its coldest form. She lived in England as a child queen, surrounded by strangers and whispers. She shared no bed with her husband, yet that would come later. Her presence alone was a message. Peace at the cost of a little girl's freedom. Years later, another young royal, Augusta of Saxe-Gotha, faced a different kind of horror. At just 16, she traveled from Germany to England to marry Frederick, Prince of Wales. The moment she met him, he publicly kissed her in front of a watching crowd. Augusta, overwhelmed and humiliated, immediately vomited. The court laughed. No one asked how she felt. These weren't rare cases. They were standard practice. Royal daughters were raised like delicate instruments, trained to smile, obey, and concede. Their worth wasn't measured by their happiness, but by how well they could carry dynasties on fragile shoulders. Behind the palace walls, many of these girls broke quietly. Anxiety, isolation, loneliness, depression. Words never spoken aloud, but suffered deeply. A forced wedding night wasn't just a personal violation. It was a psychological wound. To fail at marriage, or worse, to fail at childbirth, meant national embarrassment. But to survive, it often meant silencing their own pain forever. Ritual number 1. In many royal weddings, the bed wasn't just a place of intimacy. It was a stage, a symbol, sometimes even a tomb. When Henry VII of England married Elizabeth of York, their union was meant to end the civil war the Wars of the Roses had torn England apart. Their wedding night bed was more than furniture. It was a message. Hand-carved symbols, Tudor roses and dark wood, surrounded the couple like a coffin. The bed itself was built to represent death and rebirth, the death of a conflict, the birth of a dynasty. But that symbolism came with pressure. The future of England rested on what happened between those sheets. One wrong move, no heir, no peace. And some royal consummations were worse than symbolic. They were disasters. Take Catherine the Great and Peter III of Russia. From the moment they met, there was no love, no spark, just dread. Peter was immature, cruel, and obsessed with toy soldiers. He would march them around the bedroom, while Catherine, a teenage girl in a foreign land, watched. In silence, their wedding night was awkward, cold, possibly never consummated at all. Years passed without a child. Whispers filled the palace. Was Peter impotent? Did he even try? Eventually, Catherine took matters into her own hands with another man. She gave birth to a son, officially Peter's, but everyone knew the truth soon. After Peter was overthrown dead, some say Catherine ordered it. Others say the court had had enough. One thing is clear, What began in a grand wedding bed ended in betrayal. Blood and a throne seized by force. In the world of royals, a wedding night was never private. It was political, and when it went wrong, the consequences could echo for generations. Royal weddings, we imagine them as fairy tales, golden carriages sparkling, gowns, grand halls echoing with music. But behind the velvet curtains, the truth was often darker. Far darker. These weddings weren't built on love. They were forged in politics. They were cold calculations, alliances sealed with flesh, dynasties built on the backs of frightened brides and humiliated grooms. Each ritual, no matter how strange or cruel, served one purpose: power. The bedding ceremonies, the child marriages, the public undressings, the ghostly presence of priests and courtiers in chambers that should have been private. These weren't about romance. They were performances, rituals meant to show dominance, legitimacy, and control. What about today? We may no longer parade royal couples to the bedchamber, but traces of these old rituals linger: public pressure, lavish expectations, the obsession with airs and appearances. We still turn weddings into spectacles, forgetting the people beneath the crowns. The royal brides and grooms of history were often pawns. Some endured in silence. Others, like Catherine the Great, fought back with fire. But all of them, whether celebrated or forgotten, paid a human cost for the crown. So, the next time you see a royal wedding with all its polished perfection, ask yourself, what story lies beneath the silk and gold? What ghosts still haunt the bedchambers of power? Thank you for joining us on this haunting journey through history's most terrifying wedding night traditions. If this video gave you chills or made you see the past in a new light, please like the video, subscribe to History Screen channel, and turn on the bell so you never miss another shadow tale from the corridors of history. Until next time, stay curious and stay brave.